Hello everyone, my name is CEO for SEOTheProducer.com and the Producer's Blog, and today we're sending a big f*** you to Quantizing. Hey everyone and welcome back. So after Tuesday's tutorial, I had Adam Salah, and sorry if I butchered your name, saying he loved the groove on the hats that I made in the previous tutorial, and he said, you gotta tell me how you accomplished that. Now, this is actually a thing that I like to do a lot. I like to not quantize my drums a lot. This gives me a bit more of a natural feel and a bit more movement of than just quantizing everything completely to a grid. So I'm gonna go into the thing that I did on the previous tutorial, but I wanted to start off by talking about this small little loop that I made. I'll discuss about all the elements that I put in and how I accomplished the sort of moving, groovy feel that I got. So I'll just play it a little bit so you can get an idea of what we're talking about. So every time I make a beat, I'll start with a sample or melody, and then I'll add a kick and snare, just outlining the basic groove that I want for the beat. And then I'll add all the small little variations and all the small embellishments that I need and that I want. So the kick and snare for me are usually completely quantized to the grid, and I like to do that because all the other elements that I'm going to add later actually going to give the groove to the beat, because all the other elements instead are not going to be quantized, and those are the ones that are really going to give the groove to the beat. So I'll play the kick and snare just with a click, so we can hear that everything is completely quantized. And then I'll add, for example, I have these clap ghost notes, and if you don't know a little bit of drumming terminology, ghost notes are usually all the small little embellishments that you can do with the snare or the hat, or all those sort of lower volume notes that you add in between the major hits, so the 1, 2, 3, 4 hits with the kick and snare, and that's actually starting to give a little bit more feel to the very basic quantized kick and snare. And as we can see here, the ghost notes are actually slightly delayed, and that starts to give a little bit more of a feel, of a groove. And there's not much to it really. The last two notes are actually early, so you start to have a bit of a up and down feeling of late and early, of a mix of late and early hits. The next thing would be the snare ghost notes, and when I play a groove on my keyboard, I'll just play, let's say, 8 or 16 bars of it, and then just find the small little loop that I like the most, that I like the groove the most, and I'll just play around with the timing of those notes and just try to not quantize it at all. But if I do need to quantize it, I will, but I try not to. And I like to do this thing where it's some notes are early, some notes are late. Like this one right here is a little bit late, because a real drummer doesn't really play every note perfectly on the grid, so you might play one note slightly anticipated and some notes a little bit late. So let's hear what that is doing. So it creates a little bit of a lazy feel, and I really like that. It's really groovy to me. The next thing would be to add I added some toms right here, and it's actually a fill from another song. So it's a sample. So again, it won't probably be completely quantized because it was played by a real drummer. So let's hear what that is doing. So again, it gives you a little bit more feel at the end of a loop, and adding sampling toms and fills in general will give you a little bit more of a natural feel to your very synthesized, let's say, kicks and snares. Now, the thing that really starts to make the groove happen is this next kick right here, and it's a sort of a very big boomy kick. And these ones are actually one is late and one is fairly early, and it gives the beat a really weird groove, and again even more lazy, let's say. So if I were to quantize those, and the next one instead is the non-quantized, so let's hear the two in succession. So it's just moving around a little bit more, and these are the small little things that you can do to really add some groove to a beat. Now, the next thing is the hi-hat. The hi-hat for me is, being a drummer is a really fundamental thing, so I like to play my hi-hat and just leave it like that for the most part. As you can see here, I found a loop. As you can see, it's just repeating the loop, and I wanted to leave all the velocities the way that I played it, so it gives even more of a natural feel. As you can see, many of the hits are not actually quantized, or very slightly quantized, because as you can see, it's just 45% of the strength of the quantization. So this will give this type of feel. So all these things that might not seem much are actually adding a lot to the whole groove of the song, because if I were to just completely quantize everything, you'll hear a very different type of groove. And actually, let me do that right now, and I'll get back to you in a second. So the first one is the completely quantized one, and the second one is the groovy one. So here we go. So to me, as a drummer, it's a really drastic difference, and once you add it once you put it in the context of a beat or of a song, it really it really makes a difference. All these small little movements really make a difference. So the next thing in the beat would be just crashes and nothing much happening right here. That's that. And the piano just doing the notes from the bass from the sample. And these are actually completely quantized because I want the 808, the sample, and the piano to be completely aligned. And the next thing would be the 808. So again, not much happening right there. So since there's drums in the sample, the drums are not gonna completely align with my kicks and snares, because the sample obviously, probably wasn't recorded with a click or a metronome, and they weren't edited to death and weren't completely aligned to a grid. So you can layer all these different grooves. So the groove that we created with our programmed drums, and the drums from the sample or the percussion in the sample, and add even more groove or even more ghost notes, small little notes that might happen in the sample, and they will actually add to the groove of the beat. So here we go. If you listen closely to the snares in the sample, you can hear that some of them don't align with the original clap right here, and that's actually something that will make the whole groove a little bit more natural. And I love the fact that not everything is aligned, because this is a problem that we get a lot with programmed drums, and especially trap drums. Everything is just too synthesized, and I get it. I mean, many producers are not drummers, so they might not completely understand what a natural drum performance sounds like. And this is a thing that we actually need to work on, because even programmed drums need to have some level of dynamic change and natural feel that resembles a little bit what a real drummer would play. So let's hear it once again, the whole beat, and let's listen to, I'll just solo and mute all the different parts so we can hear all the small little bits that start to add to the groove. So I'd like to add one last thing, and when you completely align a kick and a snare, or a snare and a hi-hat to each other, they will just sort of add volume, and you won't properly hear the say the top end of the snare. You'll hear the top end of the hi-hat, for example, and you'll start to mess with the frequencies a lot. So that's one aspect of the issue. The other thing would be that you can actually add more power when things are not aligned, because power sort of derives from the non-alignment of, let's say, the kick to the guitars to the bass. And I'm not talking about a huge disalignment, non-alignment, whatever the word is, just a very slight offset that occurs naturally when you play with other people. And productions tend to sound very cold and synthetic when you don't add that slight offset between instruments, and it actually adds more power. So that's definitely something that we need to address. So since at the beginning of the tutorial I mentioned what Adam asked me from the previous tutorial, I wanted to address that for a second. Now, the groove is actually so simple, it's ridiculous. I did the same thing that I did in the other beat. So the kick and snares are completely quantized to the grid. You can see right here, it's completely aligned. They're completely aligned. The hi-hat instead, for the most part, is completely aligned. These most hits are completely aligned. The thing that throws you off and that actually gives you the groove are these small little notes right here, just these 4 notes that are actually really late, as you can see right here. And I'll just play the beat with them quantized and then without the quantization. And that's the thing. I mean, it's just small little things like these that make a whole lot of difference. Now, as I mentioned in the previous tutorial, the fact that we're pitching down the whole beat, this actually is sort of stretching out the samples a little bit, or the beginning of the samples a little bit. So it gives you even more of a groove, and it sort of exaggerates all these small little things. And you get to that lazy, slow, groovy type of groove. Okay, people, so that's all we got time for today. Make sure to like and subscribe. Drop a comment below if you'd like to know something else about drum production, about quantization, etc. Make sure to let me know in the comments below if you'd like to, what would you like to see in the next video. And make sure to visit theproducer.com/theproducersblog for more audio and production goodness. And while you're there, sign up to the form on the right or at the bottom if you're on mobile, and download my free ebook, The 5 Mixing Techniques You Should Be Using Right Now. It's awesome, it'll change your life, you'll love it. And having said this, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.